Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we're continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine. Well, the war of the Kursk potato fields continue. The incursion salient is getting smaller and smaller by the day for Ukrainian forces. Right now, it's roughly 19 by 20 kilometers in distance, essentially 19 kilometers deep, about 20 or so kilometers in width, and continues to shrink day by day. If we go back and we look at what has happened over the last few days, you can see that it has shrunk quite a bit. Now, look, I got to tell you, if I was a Ukrainian soldier's parent, and I knew that my son was deployed, fighting for these potato fields and dying for these potato fields and really nothing more, I would be quite upset. Now, compounding that is the issue that elections have been canceled in perpetuity inside of the Ukraine. What's interesting is that the quote-unquote mainstream media, or the Zelensky supporting media inside of the Ukraine, alleges that 58% or 60% essentially of all Ukrainians support the permanent cancellation of elections. Now, come on, let's be reasonable. Let's be reasonable just for a minute. And let's pretend that the United States was in a large-scale war. Do you really believe the American public would be okay with canceling elections in perpetuity? For you lefties out there, if Donald Trump had canceled elections to fight some war, would you be okay with that? Probably not. So I have to say that, in all probability, this survey, in which 60% of Ukrainians are okay with not having elections during time of war, is a little nonsensical. Just a little bit, maybe. You think? You think that's reasonable? Yeah, I do too. Anyway, now, there continues to be this hubbub about the Russians executing Ukrainian prisoners of war. Now let's deep dive into this a little bit. The Ukrainians, specifically the Ukrainian drone operators, are using something called dragon's breath. And what they are doing is they are taking thermite, they're taking white phosphorus, they are creating this concoction, and then they are spraying this thermite, this white phosphorus, Willy Pete, this high burning material, directly on Russian trenches. You can see it here. You can see the drone going over the anticipated area where the Russian trenches are, and then burning Russian troops essentially alive. Now, the same media in the Ukraine that says that, well, 60% of the population is okay with not having elections, is also saying this is just simply to burn foliage, to eliminate the forest where we can see the enemy. Right. All right, so if you're a Ukrainian drone operator and you want to launch a drone that sprays white phosphorus and thermite on infantry, on exposed infantry forces, and you are caught as a prisoner of war, and the Russians find out that you were spraying white phosphorus on their troops, guess what? Yeah, you're probably going to get executed. Okay? That's just the way it is. If you drop thermite bombs on surrendering Russian forces, and you were caught because your unit has been overrun and enveloped, and there is evidence that you took part in dumping white phosphorus and thermite on exposed Russian forces, you're probably going to get executed. So word to the wise, maybe rethink spraying white phosphorus on exposed enemy trenches. Just saying, right? Maybe think about it, right? Before you drop a 60 millimeter or 40 millimeter frag on a surrendering Russian infantryman that is not armed, and you're then caught by that same unit, yeah, probably not going to go well for you. Just saying. All right. So yeah, these are actual systems that the Ukrainians are using, and in all probability, the Russians are going to use them or are using them as we speak as well. But incredibly nasty war that's going to just get nastier. And if the Ukrainians do this and they start dropping white phosphorus on Russian trenches, then if the Russians dump sarin gas on Ukrainian trenches, then I'm sure the media will cover that accurately and explain just why the Russians dumped nerve gas on Ukrainian positions. Probably not, though, right? All right, but that's what happens in war. This is what happens. Wars get nasty, and war is nasty, and that's just the way it works. So again, this Kursk salient is collapsing. It's collapsing rather quickly now. I joke about the potato fields of Kursk. Yes, there is potato fields, and the reason I talk about the potato fields is there was an actual Ukrainian video in which you see a Ukrainian MRAP, and you see the individual on top of the MRAP firing his Mark 19 40 millimeter grenade launcher towards Russian forces, and he is yelling. He loves the smell of burning potatoes in the morning, taken from obviously the Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. So yes, that is where that come from. There is potato fields in this area where the fighting is going on, and that originates from the actual Ukrainian side. But it's not going well for the Ukrainians. The Russians have, again, I've talked about this before, have encircled it. You have elements of the 56th Air Assault Regiment, the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, the 11th Separate Air Assault Brigade, the 144th Motorized Rifle Division, and the 155th Separate Brigade of Marines that are operating against Ukrainian forces, plus a host of other units that have been brought in to clean this incursion up. Again, we're still trying to understand the cost versus benefit and the why behind this operation. It's hard to believe that this operation was launched by a military professional, a person within the Ukrainian military. Seems more likely it was a politically motivated operation coming from the office of Volodymyr Zelensky. So we'll continue to cover this, and we don't expect that this incursion will last much longer, given the amount of forces that the Russians have brought in to clean this area up. The war continues along the entire front. The war of attrition continues as Ukrainian forces continue to get pounded day in and day out. It was just another large-scale drone and missile operation against a variety of targets all throughout the Ukraine. Those operations continue day in and day out as well. And again, we anticipate the possibility of a Zaporizhzhia offensive in the southwest towards Orikhiv and ultimately Zaporizhia as well, possibly in the winter or coming into the next summer as well. So we will continue to monitor and report. As always, thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. Have a good day.